For more on Sudan's war and its impact on civilians, I'm joined live via Skype from Johannesburg, South Africa by Allan Ngari, Africa Advocacy Director at Human Rights Watch. Allan, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Esther, for having me on the show.
Now, Allan, as far as you know, what has Human Rights Watch been able to document in regards to the war in Sudan?
You know, even before we talk about what's been documented by Human Rights Watch, I think one of the most disturbing features of the ongoing violent conflict between the SAF and RSF in Sudan is that despite several promises of ceasefires, including from the US-Saudi brokered peace deal that happened in Jeddah not too long ago, both parties cannot seem to keep their hands off the triggers. And what we are seeing from the research from Human Rights Watch on the ground and in countries around Sudan where civilians have fled, Chad, Uganda, Egypt, and various other Central African Republic, is that as a result of this failure to observe the ceasefires, we continue to register across the country civilian loss of lives, mass displacement internally, and as I've mentioned, even externally outside of the country, a number of refugees. We must also remember that Sudan was also home to a number of refugees from countries across the borders of or neighboring countries that had sought refuge there. So they're doubly displaced, and various other grave human rights abuses.
Allan, what are your recommendations as Human Rights Watch to the African Union first and also to the United Nations Security Council?
The AU, the UN, and the Intergovernmental Agency for Development will need to take immediate steps to get the two warring parties to get to the negotiation table. Of course, the first thing is to silence the guns, and this is really the best way to ensure that civilians are protected. And we think that there needs to be a clear message that comes from the AU to the warring parties that there will be consequences for the abuses, particularly those against workers, aid workers, doctors, and other professionals. And certainly the Security Council is an important player as well. It should actually take stronger steps to reverse that rapidly deteriorating situation in Sudan. We are concretely asking for targeted sanctions on those responsible for violating international humanitarian law and international human rights law. But we're also calling for an armed embargo against the warring parties. And this will certainly prevent future atrocities from happening. Hopefully, we will see some leadership from these three countries.
Allan, thank you very much for your insight. Allan Ngari is Africa Advocacy Director at Human Rights Watch.